The Holiday Island Suburban Improvement District Board of Commissioners regular meeting is now in session. It is Tuesday, May 27th, 2 o'clock. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Will the Secretary call the roll, please?
Commissioner Reagan? Here. Commissioner Rochford here. Commissioner Ralph?
Here.
Commissioner Pinkley?
Here.
Commissioner Stith is absent. She had mentioned she was going to be on vacation.
We have a quorum. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll
Mr.
make a motion to
Chairman?
approve the agenda.
I would like to amend the agenda.
Very well.
I want to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel issues.
I would like to amend the agenda to discuss the compensation for the facilitator and the burglar report. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded, and the agenda's been amended to include the special executive session, compensation for the facilitator, and the burglar report. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for the April 28th regular meeting?
I'll make that a motion to approve it.
Right, but we got a second, but did we vote on it? We did not vote to amend the agenda.
Very well.
You don't have to vote to amend the agenda.
We didn't discuss it.
We don't have to discuss it, it's just a motion to amend it.
All right. We'll take a vote to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And I'll, can we open discussion on that? So, 'cause
Well, first we have to say whether we're going to approve it. Are we going to approve it?
it's 2 against, 2 for.
2 against amending the agenda to talk about the special session, the executive session.
Okay, let's
And the
discuss.
reason I wanted to discuss, that's the reason I
Okay,
wanted to
let's
discuss it.
discuss it, David.
Yeah, so the reason I want, it seems like we're getting into a habit of every meeting amending the agenda.
Okay,
then I'll bring it out
in public prior.
And that's fine, there's no time for us to prepare, and it's like we're just playing reactionary.
You don't have to prepare for this.
For instance, let me just finish my statement. So for instance, I have something for Commissioner comments that I'd like to present, and it's under Commissioner comments that I don't have to have the agenda, but I can present something. We're not going to vote on what I'm presenting, but to me, something that's as big as an executive session or something like that, I would think we would want to try, unless it's an emergency, we would want to get it on the agenda the week before.
This
so that,
is it, well.
I mean, I'm just telling you my opinion. That's all I'm trying to say, because otherwise, it's not fair to the whole board where we don't have all the facts and we're only hearing one side. Like, I do research. That's what I like to do. I like to do research and be well-informed before I make a decision, and it seems like almost every meeting, there's like, I'd like to vote to amend the agenda. And I've been going along with it. Sure, let's try it. But I just think that we're not doing ourselves any good by not having a well-informed decision.
Then we'll bring it out in public.
Okay, it'll be in Commissioner comments.
Well, in Commissioner comments, you won't be able to vote on it. Unless we can make a motion then, which we can.
Yeah, and I guess that's, because we're at a regular session, right? So.
Very well.
So we're back to approving the agenda, and it was 2 for and 2 against, so we're keeping the agenda as is. Is that what we heard?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes for April 28th regular meeting?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No ceremonial. Any announcements? Public comments.
Al Selleck, 22 Buckskin Lane. I just wanted to clarify something from the workshop that came up last week. Tyler said I had asked to have the bubbler on the number one pond on the 9-hole shut off, and that's not totally accurate. On April 7th, I sent an email to the district that the bubbler is almost totally plugged. If it cannot be replaced with a fountain, could the golf crew at least unplug it? It's a bad choice of words. I guess I should, could the golf course crew at least unclog it? I did not mean for, the bubbler, you all know I'm not satisfied that the bubbler is equivalent to the fountain, but it's better than nothing. The bubbler was very clogged, just putting out a little bit of bubble. And so I was commenting that the bubbler machine is plugged up in the bottom. It needs to be unclogged. So that's what I would like to ask, that if they're not going to do anything else, then at least could they unclog it so we're getting some action out of it? Because currently we're getting nothing. Thank you.
Any other general comments from the public? Any reports?
As of now, the street department, their bush hog, we got one that just totally went to crud on us. So we're looking at prices for a new bush hog. And this is something we can't really put off for too long because we gotta keep both them going, especially with all the rain and the way the grass is growing. So Mike is going to be getting me prices on a bush hog, and then I'll send them out and we'll have discussion on that. Then at the greens, Tyler found a split seater. It's a used one. It's a 4-foot that goes behind the tractor. And he found it for $4,000. And the new ones are right around $15,000. So.
It's was it grass seeder?
Yep, it's that split seater you're talking about.
Yep.
So he found a used one for $4,000 and,
Yeah, we need to get that done.
well, and
they
that's
need
it.
to get
I mean,
one.
the way that he's doing it now with the waste of seed just being thrown on top of the ground, I mean, the 4,000 is gonna save us in seed alone.
Yep.
So we'll
Well,
probably,
and then they're gonna need it every year.
yep.
Because, I mean, that's a constant problem with the golf courses with not much topsoil.
He did a test sample there on the 9 green with his spiker and then spreading the seed on top, and 50% of the seed is just laying on top, didn't even get penetrated.
Yeah, I
So,
saw that. I looked at it. I've been out there
Yep.
every day.
So yeah, we'll probably go with the split seeder for $4,000 then. That's all.
Did
I-
you okay him to?
Nope,
get-
I wanted to bring it up to you guys and just kind of get a feel for what you guys thought. And like I said, we're gonna save that and see.
I'd like to make a motion that we purchase that.
Yeah,
$4,000.
it's below my $10,000 amount, so I can make the purchase as long as you guys I just wanted to get a feel for what you guys thought on it.
My opinion is we need it.
Yep.
Randy, what's yours?
I'm still disappointed about the $6,000 we were quoted for the repairs, and it's up to $32,000. I'm really hesitant about spending more money at the golf course. I agree we need it, but can we afford it?
Well, we could take 2 guys with rakes, go out there and rake it, and 1 guy seed it. And, I mean, you could do this with 2 guys, I think in 2 days. If you had 2 guys, you raked it, 1 guy seeded, the other guy raked it back over, and go to the next spot. Because you're only talking roughly 2 acres. That's what Tyler told me, about 2 total acres. And, they could do that this year and get that done right away. But if we don't want to spend the $4,000, but probably time-wise, it would cost us less money to have them do it, and then they could get on the projects of getting all the sod redid, the dirt hauled in, that sort of stuff. Because they're going to have to haul some dirt in those spots, and that's easy to seed.
Yeah, with the split seat, it's gonna be one guy instead of three. And then, like I said, we're gonna save that just in seat alone.
We
we
got
need
anything
to
in
get-
writing on the price, $4,000?
What's that?
Do we have a bid in writing for 4,000?
Nope, he just sent me the text message of it, 4,000 and the 15,000 for the new one.
Where is it located?
Same place you got the other stuff. Yeah, Kansas City turf or whatever it is.
Machinery.
Yeah.
place.
So it's 4,000 plus we gotta ship it.
Nope, he's gonna bring it down here for free.
All right, that's a good deal.
Guy said he was he'd load it up and bring it down here, $4,000 to the front door.
Yeah, I agree with Randy's concern. I mean, that is, you know, a big overage where we basically doubled what we were doubled because we
It's
quoted like
5 times-
6,000. but
it's
we were-
5 times
yeah,
what
5
we
times
said.
more. So there is a concern of
Yeah,
spending too much in there.
Because
but-
we were told it was
Right,
a
but,
week.
Yeah,
and
$6,000 a
$6,000.
week in 2 weeks, and then we got, we also got loads of topsoil from him too, so that kind of added to it too.
Well, you had
And then,
Rain time too in there.
yeah, and then pushing the rocks.
so understand there's mitigating circumstances, but again, continue to throw, since we already invested in that, if we need this machine to be able to make sure that what we've seeded is good, I defer to.
Well, we're gonna save it in seed, number one.
That's what I'm saying, I guess.
That's-
You
then
know,
maybe
that's
the
the
right-
main
And if we
thing.
don't do it, guys, I just had a guy, I'm gonna give you a for instance, I just had a guy, that was what night this week? I was practicing on hole number 9, and this is probably about 5:30. And this guy comes up, I step back off the green toward the shed, wait for him to get up there, and tell him hi, that sort of stuff. He putts out, and he comes over, and we talk for a few minutes. And he tells me, he said, I'm not gonna, if I come back to this course, he said, it's not worth $62 green fees the way these fairways are. I said, we're working on them, and I explained to him what we're doing. Well, he said, you need to get those bare spots done. I was here last year, and it was the same mess. I said, but we have stopped that problem with this water, and we will be seeding those fairways, or seeding those spots. And
Yeah,
so he left it, and he went on to number 10, and that was it, but that's what he told me. My wife, some of the women told her they're not gonna come back either, because they don't like the fairways, but she tried to explain to the women's league that they are gonna fix all that.
Yep, last year just got totally away from us with the sprinkler head problems that we had and everything else, so.
And they were a mess. There was no way to use it.
We're on the right track, we're getting there.
So,
I mean, they could use some, but they couldn't have used them all.
so I'm good with it personally, because protecting our investment at this point of what we've already spent. That's kind of where I'm at.
If $4,000 is the price.
Price, yep.
And we haven't seen that in writing, so,
I can get a copy of that for you.
okay.
All right. Any other reports?
That's all I have.
Receive and approve the April financials. Everybody's had a chance to look at them.
I'll make a motion, we approve them. I haven't seen anything in there that I thought was out of line.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the April financials. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Consideration and action to amend the amenity fees and the rental fees of the district. Do I have a motion to discuss the amenity fees and the rental fees of the district?
I'd make a motion that we discuss it.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I looked through all these amenity fees, and they look pretty consistent with what we've always done. The only question I have, and I have no understanding of why, but why we include sales tax in everything.
Why don't we just,
I don't go anywhere,
Charge
and
it.
I don't pay sales tax.
right,
And here we eat the sales tax on all these transactions. I don't understand it. And I would make a motion that that thing is taken out and people pay the sales tax. that HICID doesn't pay everybody else's sales tax.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
I don't know why that's been like that.
So,
Yeah.
that was, and this was, the original one was built by Bryce Holland, and that's the way he typed it up, and then all I did was just add the stuff in bold for the $100 half-day. The stuff in bold on the facility rentals is what I added.
Right.
So the tax fee and all that stuff, that was all previously done when Bryce did this and back in December.
Janice, go ahead. Everybody at home wants to hear you.
Nope, there you go.
Okay, years ago, the sales tax was always added to the cost. And somewhere along the line, people thought, oh, it's easier if it's a round number. People don't have to carry change with them. They don't have to. And all of a sudden, all the fees, all the rentals, everything got rounded up, tax included. And I said, we're losing money on this. I've said it all along, but it continued on like that. So it was never like that prior probably to, say, 7 to 10 years ago. And then all of a sudden something changed, and that's how it ended up being tax included, which I never agreed with.
I can't think of anything that I buy
No.
that I don't pay sales tax on.
You're absolutely correct. So it should always have the
I
tax.
don't
I
understand
know. I don't
why
know.
we are afraid to charge sales tax.
Yeah, it seems like it, and that's not right. We are, food or anything, drinks, everything, there should be taxes on it. The food and stuff at the rec center, like when we do, they say, well, just round it up higher and conclude the tax, so they're not doing all the change. But I think that's wrong, too. It should be all tax included, tax in addition to what the cost is.
Well, I'd like to know how we're dealing with the accounting of it.
In the computer, you put the price in there, and you go down here, you put in your taxes, your county and your state taxes, check those 2 boxes. Then when you get down here, you can hit a box that says tax included. So then it just automatically takes away from the cost to put the tax in there and rounds it up to the full amount.
When you put the sales tax
Yes.
included, it just raises your cost to the person when he looks at the menu or he looks at the cost of going to the golf course, and it makes it higher. So if you price it, your food or whatever you're talking about, and you price it without sales tax, when the sales tax, he's not going to say a word because he knows he pays sales tax at every place you go.
Right. So you would still, when we put something in, you still check the two boxes for sales tax and the county tax and the state, but you do not check tax included.
Right.
Right.
That's what we got to do.
And I would make the motion that we change that we don't eat the sales tax on all
I
these
agree.
transactions.
I agree.
It's a huge amount of money.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And I don't see that we would lose business by charging sales tax, which every other business does.
Right.
Every other restaurant or every other
Yeah.
place charges that.
And we also, there is also, when you use a credit card, I have a little thing that I put by the register now, anything over $100, not the golfers so much, but rentals and passes that I sell, if they use a credit card, we're tacking on to 3% for,
That's in the
credit card
amenity
fees.
schedule is a 3% fee
Yes.
applies to credit card
Yes.
transactions.
Correct.
But it does not state any dollar amount.
well, when you have golfers that come in and their cost is 67 or something, I don't want to, yeah,
But if we're gonna do that, it needs to be fair and equitable upon all,
Right.
for all. So if you're gonna
So
do
you
it,
could do it
can't
for
do
every-
for some and you can't do for
Right,
all.
right.
So the sales tax needs to be applied the same way that it would be at the rec center, that it would be the golfers purchasing the passes. It all needs to be equal across the board.
correct,
And
everybody would
we
pay.
can't pick and choose, and we can't,
Right.
$100, not $100, whatever it is. If there's no dollar amount on here, then the 3% should be on everything at all times.
We've
no matter
had
what.
the issue before where somebody came in, and of course, they didn't have any cash with them. And so they thought, well, where's your ATM? We don't have an ATM. So they would rather pay cash, but, if they see that they want to buy something for $5, and now we're going to charge them 3%, but they have no cash, they want an ATM machine. We don't have an ATM machine. So the rec center is a little different. Everything is not that expensive, You know what I'm saying?
No, I totally
Yeah.
get that, but what I'm
Yeah.
saying is that we can't pick and choose who we're applying these.
Yes, I
percentage
understand
to.
that. I
So if we're
understand.
going to have something to where if it's under $10 or whatever the situation is, that we will do it that way, but it needs to be written out.
Yeah.
So that it's, everybody
Right.
understands the rules are for
Right.
everybody.
Yeah.
You
I,
know?
I just put that, $100 down there. So if you buy a pass for 100 and you want to use a credit card, or you rent a room and you're using a credit card, everything would be charged at 3%. So when you get in for a swimming pool or something, $5, you take a credit card? Yeah, we do. And we have to tack on 3%.
Right, I mean, that's just something that we need
Yeah.
to explore, because it
Yeah.
needs to be in black and white for everybody.
Right.
It
Right.
needs to be one way or another across the board. I can
Right.
understand under so much money that we're not gonna
Right.
charge the 3%, but at some point, we can't, because it's just gonna look like
Right.
there's favoritism involved.
Right.
You
So
know,
that,
and we don't need that.
Figure out what the amount might be.
Right, exactly.
Many places have the 3% already on the cost.
Some
and you
do.
offer a discount for cash.
Oh, okay.
A lot of businesses are doing that now. They automatically, because everybody uses so much plastic, they already
I
built
know.
the 3% in.
Right.
And if you're going to pay for cash, you get a discount.
And a lot of people don't have checks anymore either. So
Let me ask something. Would you benefit with an ATM at the rec center? We've had this
Possibly.
discussion in the
I
past.
don't know. I don't know. It's possible. We've had that one person look for one, to
Well-
have an ATM machine, but nobody else has really
One
asked for one.
person's really-
Yeah, I mean, it was just that one woman that said, where's your ATM? Well, we don't, what do you mean you don't? Okay, then we got, so, but not necessarily would we benefit from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the amenity schedule? Oh, Misty, go ahead.
As far as the tax included, there is one instance that I do tax included on the price, and that is with my beer. And eventually, when I get drinks, I go ahead, but I figure that into the cost. Our food all adds tax afterwards. So, and currently, in the pro shop, I know that it's checked as tax included in the price, but we can change that because, as Janice said, it's very simple as far as the boxes go. But the one instance that I will continue to do the tax included is on the price of beer, so that way if somebody comes in, it's $3.50, they give me the $3.50 instead of all of the weird pennies if they're just having a drink. But that, again, that is built in when I figure the cost of it.
Okay.
Okay. Secondly, on the 3%, which we cannot charge to a debit card, it can only be done with a credit card because legally you cannot charge a service fee for a debit card transaction. And because they'll come back, there's been lawsuits on that one. That does have to be posted like what she has done, and we need to make that, if we're going to do it across the board, then it needs to be across the board. So that needs to be something that we do at the pro shop and at the restaurant, so we need to come to a decision on that. And I don't know how our POS works. Some of them are set up that way to go ahead and calculate that in, but I don't know how ours is. Now, I have had several people ask about an ATM at the restaurant. So if we do consider doing that, that is something I think would benefit us.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you. Any other comments on the amenities schedule? Al?
A couple things, like on the liquor, which we also do at the Elks. You asked how do you get the tax. You take your total sales, and in our town, divided by 1.07, it shows you how much your sales are and how much your tax are. Then you enter that way on your state form. So you're just backing it out. You're losing, it comes out to like 6% off the sales. As far as the 3%, there are some card companies out there now where the card company charges it to the person, not the restaurant charging it.
Okay.
So, I've had a couple different restaurant people tell me that they don't have anything to do with it. And I think Mariachi might be one of them. If you charge it, the handler of the card, who you're billing it, who your card handler is putting the 3% on the person.
I
That'd
don't
be
know
something
what
to
golf now
check
does.
into. And lastly, in Peggy Ludowick's discussion last week, there was some discussion about a group was going to be charged so much because they weren't residents, because it wasn't a resident renting the facility. So then Peggy put it in her name to get the discounted price, and I'm not sure how you have it set up at the moment, because I didn't see the proposal that you have, but I would think, and I would, request a group that is residents, like Holiday Island Rotary,
Yeah, within
Holiday
the
Island
new,
Chamber of Commerce, anything that's,
within the new proposal, it says specifically HICID organizations.
Okay,
So Holiday Island organizations, they have a flat fee of usage. It's no longer up to the property, as a property owner or non-property owner.
okay.
So that's in there now.
And we have somewhere written where Chamber of Commerce is the one that was in discussion. So the Chamber of Commerce is listed in the HICID organizations, correct? There we go. So we have that discrepancy still then.
HICID organizations are auxiliary, HILGA, all the golf organization, and HIMGA, Rotary is a HICID organization. Friends of the Barn is a HICID organization.
I'm confused this is my naiveness. Why would the Chamber of Commerce for Holiday Island not be considered that organization?
Because they're their own,
So is Rotary International. Rotary International is kind of the same, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're a chapter of Rotary International.
so it should just be HIMGA, HILGA, Fire Auxiliary, Friends of the Barn, or your organizations.
So then maybe we're back to, I don't know if we solved this yet then, because
I would question if the Holiday Island Chamber of Commerce is a member of the International Chamber of Commerce or the Arkansas Chamber of Commerce. From being here when they formed the last time, it was just a group of local people. But Peggy could check that out. But yeah, the Holiday Island Rotary is all local residents who are doing benefits for the Holiday Island area. Even though it's chartered through the national, it's still a local charitable organization that.
And that's it, I mean, the Rotary's national, the Chamber's national, I mean,
If our local chamber is a member of that national chamber.
which I'm sure they are, but who knows?
So right now, the Chamber of Commerce still pays a non-property owner rate if they rent anything. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, here's the deal. So the chamber isn't actually a property owner, they rent. So therefore, they are a non-property owner. And then they're a national organization, so they wouldn't be a HICID per se organization like the internal HICID organizations. So they kind of fall under that area.
Well, my question though is, might check with Peggy to find out, but is our local Chamber of Commerce, Chamber of Commerce is kind of like a
Every
public
town has a
term.
chamber.
A public term.
Yeah.
Our Chamber of Commerce is not necessarily a member of the National Chamber of Commerce, paying any dues to the National Chamber of Commerce.
So I feel like this just needs to be explored more.
Yeah.
Because while I understand HICID organizations are the few that we have, to punish those who are charitable, that are doing charitable events in the area for having to pay more, if that's something that we can work out and see, is it a liability situation or what?
Well, I mean, and that's, the HICID organizations also contribute back towards HICID. I mean, does the chamber, well, the chamber does.
I mean, not
probably-
HICID specifically or Holiday Island as a whole. That's where we're running into, again, we've got these two roadways where I feel like it seems to me that people that are wanting to put on events for that bring in the tourism, that bring in all these different things, they do benefit HICID, although they may not have money coming back straight to HICID. In the long run, they kind of do.
And that's where I fall. It's like the Rotary, the local Rotary chapter and the local chamber. Yes, we are part of the international, but the work we're doing is both at the local, helping the local, going back our kids. We're doing things that are helping our local community. So maybe we have to create a category under HICID where we caveat that these few organizations are supportive of HICID and therefore they get a discounted rate. And it's just that kind of a singular call out because they benefit the people that live here.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And we call
I
it, it's
do.
like a footnote.
I do. I think we need to have some sort of guideline, though, as to what would be those qualifications, because we don't need every organization from here. I created this organization, now I can rent
Yeah.
it for this much money
Right.
when it's a family
It needs to be
reunion.
listed.
Or
Well,
things like that, like.
an
we
example-
need to have some sort of guideline as to what qualifies them to be a footnote under the HICID organizations.
What we talked about at the last meeting with Peggy was specifically about the fishing tournament. How did HICID benefit from that fishing tournament?
They didn't.
But that's one event.
Well, it's what we're talking about. You were saying that
No, but I mean,
these groups that get a discount, obviously the fire department auxiliary, that
Yeah.
money comes back to HICID.
Right, right.
When you have a bass tournament at the barn and you give a discount, how did HICID make a dime on that deal?
all I can think of is
Janice,
Peggy's
help
not
me
here.
out here.
I would say bringing in potential people to show off Holiday Island. I mean, that's the only, I'm stretching
And
that,
there,
but
but
that's.
That's a stretch.
The events were
That's a
separate in the
stretch.
sense that,
I'm
like, the
stretching,
fishing
that's well.
tournament was one day, the dinner was the night before. Yes, there were parts of the dinner that had to do with the fishing tournament, but the dinner itself was its own fundraising event. Because people came, people could come and purchase the food and do the things and not have anything associated with the fishing tournament. They could have gone to one, they don't have to go to the other. So I can see where you're coming from, and I understand that side. That's why I'm saying we need some sort of guidelines as to what the expectations are with each of these events, if they are, part of the community as a whole,
Okay.
what are we doing with that?
Okay, since all of you haven't been here as long as I've been here doing this, like for 17 years, let me explain a few things about the HICID organizations, which were very big prior to COVID. Okay, after COVID, a lot of things broke up and they never came back. A HICID organization, the rules were that you had to have at least 70% of the people involved in that organization had to be Holiday Island property owners. Okay, that made them an organization here. There was a schedule, and I have only two things right now. One is the Pooligans, and one is, there's they play Shanghai at the Island Room. The Pooligans are at the Island Room. And Bridge. The bridge, there's a duplicate bridge that used to be up on the top, and they came down to the Island Room. Now, I can tell you the Pooligans are all property owners, and the Shanghai are property owners. But that duplicate bridge group, I think most of them from out of Holiday Island. So you've got a lot of people in that bridge group who come from all over the place, and there's maybe 2 or 3 Holiday Island people. So technically, that shouldn't be one of Holiday Island's organizations, according to what it says in the book. They got a break between Monday to Thursday. They could rent those rooms for one amount for the entire year. If they needed it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they paid a different rate, because that was the prime time for rentals. If they sold tickets and had an event and sold tickets, we were supposed to get 10% of their sales, Holiday Island was, along with the rent that they paid for the room. I don't think anybody ever collected 10% from anybody, because that would be something they would have to tell us how many of the tickets they sold and what they made, and we get the benefit of their sales. So those are the way organizations were prior to COVID. And like I said, today I've only got the Shanghai, the duplicate bridge, and Pooligans in the Island Room. The things that go on in the barn are recreation activities, meaning the stretch class. And we used to have, line dancing. But that went by the wayside because there was nobody to do it this year. So they get to use the barn because that helps the community. People go, the lot's always full on Tuesday and Thursday. People are in there doing exercises, which is a great rec center activity. Up to that point, we did have Rotary on there. The organizations had to come to me and fill out a form, and they gave me a standing cleaning deposit. And then they used the room, whatever we had, from Monday through Thursday for one price for those, all during the year, the one day a month or something, they would use it. But at this point, that's like, I got 3 of them, and that's what I got listed. So I don't know how you want to look at, the chamber is not part of Holiday Island, you know, grouping like the fire department auxiliary and stuff like that. So that's where the animal comes from. And, you know, Rich and I agreed. I said, what do we charge him? And he said, charge him as a property owner. You know, she's the property owner. But that's when she said, I don't want to sign this and have liability for the event. And the last time when I sent her a letter, I wanted a certificate of insurance from her insurance company naming Holiday Island as an additional insured for her event that she's sponsoring. I didn't get it this last time because she said she didn't have time to get it. That's what I'm getting for. Our liability's out there, but the public is coming in, and that's where the other liability falls.
So you mentioned that in the past, 70% of the organization's makeup need to be property owners.
Right.
So I can speak for Rotary, and that's definitely at least 70%.
And that would be an
The
organization.
chamber, when
That
you got Peggy,
70% figure is still in the regulation.
It still is. I've seen it in there.
I've read it, it's
Yeah.
still there.
It's still there.
not been removed.
So,
No.
so my point is Rotary would be a holiday organization.
If you still have,
As well as the Chamber of Commerce, because Peggy is.
but the
you know,
chamber is not part of Holiday Island.
But
That's a business. That's over here.
it's an organization. You just, by your own statement, you just said that was the stance, that unless they were 70% makeup or more of property owners, that organization could be considered a Holiday Island organization. Isn't that what I heard, or am I? did I miss that?
David, the regulation states that the personnel in attendance must be 70% property owners.
Right, who's in that organization.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I'm still, yeah, that's what I'm, so Rotary.
So if you
still-
have an event at the barn,
Mm-hmm.
and 70% of those people that came to that thing, like the Elvis thing, I'd be willing to bet 70% were homeowners.
Sure. And Friends of the Barn are, because
If they were
contribute
not,
that.
they wouldn't get the same rate.
Right.
That's
And-
clearly in the regulation
Yes.
right now.
And well, the ticket prices is where they get the rate as an event, but then they also have to give us 10% of the ticket cost, and they don't do that. The barn, you know, Friends of the Barn they put money to the barn, okay? Hi-Ha gives money for use here, HIMGA does, you know, all of these other places do, but the chamber does not. That's in their coffers.
That
It's
was
not
my
coming
original
back.
question. How does HISD benefit
I
when the chamber has a huge event, and the only thing I'm hearing is that people came, they saw, and that was it? That
Right.
was our benefit.
And they use our paper products, our electricity, our light, and, you know, then they're getting a smaller amount for, you know, they don't have to pay as much as a other group would pay. But that's entirely up to you. If you think it's worth it to bring people in and, you know, show them Holiday Island, you know, they're not going to buy right now, let's put it that way.
Well, and again, going back to the analogy of the bathroom, you were asking about that.
Mm-hmm.
If you go with the 70% of the people at the, you know, there could have been 70% for the dinner for all we know.
Well,
We didn't
they
take attendance, but there could have been.
I think it says 70% have to be members of that organization. That's what I think the rules say in the book,
Well, then that's what I was saying. So
members.
members is different than attendees. That's a
Oh,
different-
no, when you have tickets like that's open to the public. They're not expecting just people from here or just members. I'm talking about when you come in and play bridge.
I'm
You
talking
know?
about, I'm talking about when you're renting a facility, regardless of what it is, if that's the regs, then I'm saying, is it 70% attendance have to be property owners, or 70% of the organization?
70% of the
makeup?
organization,
So I
because
had it
you're
right the-
opening up, yeah.
So I had it right the first time.
You're right.
The
I
Rotary-
wasn't paying attention.
Rotary is 70% property
Right.
owner, and so,
Right.
and if you've got Peggy, who's a property owner for the chamber, sure, she's a staff of what? One, so I think she made the 70%. So my point is I guess I'm not following why we wouldn't call them an organization.
I wouldn't, but that's
But anyway,
me.
I know we beat this, and it sounds like we need more research, but
Yeah.
for this regulation or resolution, does anybody for discussion have any other change? Because it's not written in here, is it?
This is what makes it difficult to do these amenities. I mean, she brought up 3 different organizations that pay 3 different amounts.
Yeah.
And you try and you set a baseline, well, then you offend another organization that's been paying this much for this long, and now all of a sudden you're changing it. I mean, these amenity fees, unless it's a golf course, and, I mean, the organization side of this is literally impossible to figure and put on paper to make it fair to everybody. It's, yeah, it's a challenge.
Well, I think the chamber is part of our community, guys. I don't know about you, but everything they do benefits our community.
Janice, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, when you talk about fees, okay, the rule that I have down there for the facilities that I've so far rented is that a day rate is the day rate. You get the key when we're open at 9 o'clock in the morning, you pick up the key. I have given a key out to a person like at 5 o'clock when they were gonna be in a room at 7:30 in the morning. None of us are there, so they'll have a key. They don't go over to the location, whether it's the island room or the barn, but they have the key for the morning. When you rent it for a day, people have said, we'd like to go and set up, can we go in the day before? And I said, yes, it'll be a 4-hour rental. I rent, it's either 4-hour minimum, okay? So when somebody said they want the island room from 5 to 9, fine, I'll give you an hourly rate for 4 hours, but you get the key at 4:45. You don't get it at 9 o'clock in the morning, you get it at 4:45. And that's when they say, oh, I better rent it for a day, because they can't get it done in those 4 hours. So in Peggy's case, charged her for the day that she gave me, the 16th. Well, on the 15th, they're showing up with food in the car, and they have to have somebody cook. And I said, well, you didn't tell me that you wanted it that day. So when she came to get the key, I said, you need to, that's not me, you need to, pay for that day. And of course, there was some argument over that. Okay, fine, but, that's another story. We'd got most of it taken care of. And never mind, I won't tell you about the other part. But that's how I do it down there. It's a 4-hour minimum. Whether you're in there for 2 hours, I had a townhome meeting in there. They were in there for 2 hours, but they paid for 4. It's a 4-hour minimum, and then the day rate. That's the most fairest way you can do it, I think, for anybody. Instead of going with, half a day is this amount. The key's available at 1 o'clock for a half a day, or for the 4 hours, and then the next day is you pay for it. So you can do however you want.
Well, part of the
you just let me
discussion
know.
was the prep or setup time
Right.
prior to their event.
Correct. The prep time, yes.
Because now they're adhering to the health department, which says you can't cook something at home and bring it to the barn and sell it. It has to be prepared
it.
at the barn,
Yes,
which now has increased their setup times.
correct.
So they don't have time for just one day. They need time the night before to
Correct.
cook the brisket or
Right.
whatever they got to do.
Exactly.
And same with Peggy's group.
Yes.
Now, I guess
exactly.
as the board, we have to decide, are we just charging that day, or are we going to charge an extra 4 hours for the setup time?
So, and that's a great question, because the way, for the amenities right here, we're proposing in your bold, property owner, for instance, in the situation that we just went through with
Right.
Rotary, I'll use that as an
Right,
example.
right.
So we needed Memorial Day, but we needed the half-day before.
Correct.
So I worked with you, I
Yep.
gave you the half-day price for
Correct.
$100.
Right.
And that got us in there at 1 o'clock.
Right,
And we were able to keep it all the way through our
Right.
event, and we returned it that evening of Memorial Day.
right.
That's what I'm seeing is in here. What I don't see is where we define the time period, unless I missed that.
Well-
Like a half-day starts at what time?
1 o'clock or whatever.
Right, but that's what I would want.
Right.
Just because a half-day, when we were originally talking, we were like, can we get in there to that point the night before?
Right.
Well, that's different than, you get,
Right.
I'm obligating taking up the barn, for instance, off the books.
Correct.
For a half-day. So,
And
and
what-
we are using electricity, we are using,
Yeah.
and so I thought the $100, I'm supportive of,
Yeah.
personally, of the cost.
Right.
It's just, I'd rather make sure we understand what that half-day constitutes. Is it noon, is it?
It's either, at 1 o'clock would be fine for a half day. If somebody needed just to go in and set up for 4 hours at 5 o'clock, you could be charged the 4 hour, 4 hours. But the 4 hours is higher than a half a day.
Right, that's why I'd rather.
So
I
you
think
might
it
as well
makes
do
sense
half-day.
just Do the half-day
Yeah.
and start at 1 o'clock.
See, the issue with that, and I'll give you, when Peggy just wanted it for the 16th, that Thursday night was open all the way up to Thursday. Had somebody called and wanted to rent it for something, I wouldn't know she needed it.
That's the key.
Boom.
That's the key.
And that would have been a bigger problem all the way around. So you have to tell me ahead of time if that's something you think you need to do.
Well, what I'm understanding is they're going to pay on these events, they're going to pay the daily rate for the rental, and if they want setup, they get $100 for another 4 hours. And I think that's more than fair. So I think that part of it, we should just leave it as it is.
Okay, so leave 4 hours without a time, they get the, if they need the night, they have the night, if they need the whole day, half day still can mean 1 o'clock.
I think one of the things we have to decide is, do we really want to rent it, or are we just trying to make people run away and not rent it? You know?
We want to rent it.
Okay, we want to rent it. So with the food thing, we're going to have some extra setup time because they got to cook their food there. They can't bring it in anymore. So I think that ought to be included in the rent. Maybe we just charge the rent be higher and say, okay, we're going to charge, if it's normally for that day, let's just say it was $100, and so we're going to have a half a day, the next day you have to pay $150, then you can set up and there's no questions asked, there's no arguing about it.
But the way I see it, they're paying an extra $100 to prepare food to sell for a profit. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Well, I don't think so either.
Whereas
but
anybody else that's renting the barn for a day and they're not cooking or selling things prepared there, they don't need that extra time. They pay the same rate.
Well, can't we just give them a day and a half rent or a day rent? I mean, can we
We'll
do
give them a
that?
day rent plus $100 if they
Yeah,
need
that's-
extra time.
Well, I think that's what it ought to be a time set up that they could go in there like at whatever time that may be.
What time did you go in for the
1 o'clock. We negotiated it, it said 1 o'clock, that's plenty of time.
1 o'clock?
1 o'clock worked out for us, and I
Is that
agree with it.
PM or AM?
No, 1 o'clock PM the day before.
Well, you were there all night, right?
Yeah, and it cost us $100.
Oh, okay, well, you're
And that's-
saying
and that's what we're
$100 was a
And that's-
half a day.
That's why I was
And
asking
technically-
time period, because like I said, half a day could have meant we're getting 4 hours from 5 PM the previous day, through, to midnight and keeping the key. I was saying. if we have-
Yeah, but Peggy's argument was she was paying $200 for that same time.
And that was before that's what drove this discussion, because I disagreed with I disagreed with $200 for a half day. That was the discussion. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
So we talked about last time, we agreed most of us agreed there should be some kind of compensation for electricity and actually blocking off that period of the barn. Because like you said, so if somebody called the day before and it was open.
It was open.
Right. Somebody else pays
Right.
for it, they're gonna
Right.
get it.
Well, Peggy ended up giving me the $200 extra, okay? So then, when I listened to the meeting and she wanted her money returned, I discussed it with Rich, and I said, well, she went in there the day before for the brisket dinner. Remember, this was something else. So I said, we'd keep $100 for that, and then I heard that I thought when I listened to her, she was going to use it for the shrimp dinner the day before. So I said, okay, then the other $100 go for the shrimp dinner. Well, she came in and said she's not going to use it for the day before. I said, okay, fine, she'll pick up the key in the morning. So she came in the morning. No, she didn't come in the morning. Somebody came at noon to pick up the key for the shrimp thing. And then Peggy came to me and said, well, I picked the key up at noon, so you owe me $100. I said, no, you could have picked the key up at 9. She was looking to get another 100 back. And I said, no, it's the day rate. I said, if you want me to charge you for the half a day, then you have to be out of there at 4 o'clock. And, the thing started at 4. I'm sorry, I'm just saying how things can, go round and round when you got to make a decision on what is going to go where. But I think a half a day, because if you do 4 hours in the barn, it's $120 an hour. Sorry, it's like $30 an hour. So 4 hours is $120, whereby you just pay $100 and you get the key at 1 o'clock and go ahead and prepare what you have to prepare.
You keep the key.
And you keep the key
all the way
through your whole event.
Well, what I'm hearing then is a half a day when you're renting it for a full event and you pick up the key the day before,
No, well, yeah.
you're getting a lot more than a half a day, which is fine with
Well,
me.
you are. Yeah.
You're right, $30 an hour, a half a day is $120,
That's right.
and you could do it for 100.
Yeah. So it's a no-brainer. Keep it at the 100.
Yeah, I
And
think-
then somebody would,
I think
take
that's,
that.
everything's right there.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
so, to your point, it looks like that's what I've seen in here, the way this amenity is written. The only part I think that we're saying needs to be stricken is the sales tax part. That's what, is that, where
Yeah,
everybody else is at?
yeah, we're not giving away sales tax.
Or one
so
would
sec-
be tax not included.
Right, and then so that,
What are we going to do about the 3% on the credit card transaction? Because now I'm hearing it's different for credit cards and debit cards. Are we doing that currently?
Debit card running it as debit, or is that debit card running it as a credit? Because if it's a debit MasterCard, you can run it as a MasterCard charge / Visa charge, which is not a debit card purchase, it's a Visa MasterCard purchase. So it depends on how it's being run, would be my understanding.
Exactly, but, and here's the other thing is we need to check with our credit card processor. I only know this from the POS system and my credit card processor previously, because that was one of the big things that they send you when you switch over, because they had it built into their system. But when you switch over, you have to post large signs, and then on our, because we had the handheld POS, and so when you went to put your card in, it flashed the message that you are being charged the 3%. It only, because it was the smart one, it only charged the credit card. Even if you didn't have to enter the PIN or anything else, even if it was a debit card, it would not charge those. So we're gonna have to check with our credit card processor and see what that is, because there are specific rules about how you need to proceed with that.
Well, I would say we leave the 3% on there. There's no reason HICID should eat that 3% on every transaction.
With that, we just need to get clarification on the debit card with the credit, or the processing machine, the processing department as to how, or the company, to say how the if we need to distinguish how we can do that.
Okay.
So
All right.
are we gonna, if they pay cash or, we won't have that included then, correct? I mean, we're
If
not
they use
gonna
a
be
card.
charging them 3% if they
No,
pay
it's only if
cash.
they use a card.
Yeah, right.
Well, they're still gonna have to pay their tax, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But the additional 3% is only if they're using a card.
So are we ready to vote on this?
No, I just think that if the section 4 needs to be changed and things, I think that, because it has to be signed.
Yep, we
So
can't
he
vote
needs
on
to- it
it,
needs
so
to be
I'll have to change section 4, line 1, and then we'll have to figure out the 3%. Well, we'll figure out 3% regardless. And then, we still need to decide later on about the organizational side of it.
All right.
But we can have that in the work session for June on the organizational side and then represent it.
Very well. Any public comments? Sure. No.
So that's the point, is that we're recouping the fee from the consumer. So the 3% is added on to the total amount, that is correct.
So you're paying a 3% service fee on the sales tax?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
If they were to tip on there, they would pay 3%, including the tip amount.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Well, it's
I
legal.
mean, isn't there a way to put the 3% on before all that stuff?
Not, when the transaction goes through, the credit card companies charge you 3% of that transaction, no matter what,
No matter what it is.
the whole fee.
That's fine.
Okay.
Just like HICID right now is paying whatever your fee is, 3% or whatever on the whole transaction, tip and all.
Okay.
Somebody charges a big dinner and a tip, $300 bill. HICID would pay that whole, pay a processing fee on that whole $300.
$9. Right? Commissioner comments?
know you're gonna have some too, but I have some, Commissioner comment. Oh, sorry. So this is in regard to the UV bond. I know that last time I really brought this subject up, it was in January. And we had assumptions at that time that we were basing our decision on whether or not to take out a UV bond, or continue the path of the UV bond, pay off a portion of it, re-rack perhaps the budget, pay a portion out of the major projects. Based on seeing the terms from the May 15th, what we got from May 15th, I had some questions. I've raised some questions. I developed a white paper that I've given to Rich. So what I'm not proposing that we vote on anything, but I'd like to schedule a special meeting to go over and reconsider based off of what I'm presenting to the board, and give you time to digest and look this over with some of the assumptions were incorrect. For instance, I'll just throw one out there that we had talked about in January, that the interest rate, for instance, on this bond was like a 1.2 is what we were told. It's actually, the lending fee is a total of 4%.
That's what I was always told.
No, it was well, that's what we were all told, but that's not what was. Yeah, that was what.
3% interest rate with an additional 1% outstanding.
Yeah, it was always a 4%.
When I brought up this question, because I went back and listened to the January 30th meeting, and it was told to me at 1.2. And we said, that's cheap money. So, and we had this discussion, it's like, of course we would use government money because it's cheap, good interest at 1.2. And so my point is I cover a lot of different assumptions. I try to use facts. There's hyperlinks in it that'll take you to our recordings and some of the minutes. Some of us, weren't here for kickoff of this back in 2024. So I did some research. I tried to put it in this white paper the best I could. And my personal opinion comes out very clear in this white paper. So I'll leave it to everybody else to make your own opinions. And then I would like to have a special meeting to vote on, since 3 of us will be new members, so when Sherilyn gets back, to be able to digest this and have another vote to see if we need to continue with this UV bond.
I'm not in favor of this bond at all, just because there is a prepayment penalty that you can't, this strings us out for another
10 years.
30,
At least
30
10
years.
Yeah,
At least 10.
at least 10 years without being able to pay it off.
Right.
And all the interest that we're gonna have to pay is gonna be in the hundreds of thousands over time. I'm not a fan of this. And I've been on record that I've been trying to do this, but I'm putting it in writing, and I'd like this to have a revote. Continue, we haven't hit our bond hearing date yet, but I would like the special meeting when we're all, this is a big enough issue, all the board needs to be here. I'd ask you, do your own research, fact check me.
Well, from what I'm seeing and reading, the chances of us getting this bond are pretty slim. So I don't know that this special meeting is even going to be required.
But if we could cancel it, then if we make a decision and we can just turn everything off, let's stop paying our bond counsel or anybody else, let's just turn it off.
Well, we're paying an attorney.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, let's stop, if we can turn it off, turn it off.
Well, I had an email with her this morning, and pretty much the whole bond issue is on hold until after the 30th. So I think at that time, after the 30th,
And
then,
that's where I'm proposing, our special meeting would not be before that 30th anyway.
Okay.
Because Sherilyn's out this week, and I don't know when she comes back, but I was hoping, it needs to be before the bond hearing, if it gets
well,
scheduled.
there's no bond hearing even scheduled right now.
Right, so I just wanted to get that, again, I don't want to take a no vote, I just wanted to put it out there. We'll hang this for it public on the website.
And that could be following up with Randy with what he's saying. I mean, this could be, once the hearing Friday goes through and we talk to Sarah next week, I mean, could be like, well, okay, this is not even gonna happen, or this won't happen until after our regular meeting in June.
Right.
So we could just might not have to do a special meeting for this. We could just vote on it for the regular meeting in June.
That's my point. I don't know that it's going to
But after we get
require
through Friday, and then next week, we can talk to Sarah, see where we're gonna proceed, where we're gonna go, and then if we have to, we can call a special meeting.
Thank you, that's all I had.
comment about the compensation for the facilitator. And I don't know what has happened with that.
That's me dropping the ball because I've just been overwhelmed with everything else.
I make a motion that we pay Cindy Reagan for her services she provided in January. I make a motion that we pay her $300.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
It's been moved and seconded and voted on, and we'll pay Cindy Reagan $300 for being the facilitator of our joint meeting with the city that happened in January.
Real quick, Randy. Tabling of the amenities, we didn't do a roll call vote on that. We just first and second, didn't do a vote on it.
I didn't hear all that.
The tabling of this, we did a first and second, but we didn't vote on it. Let's vote on the tabling of the amenities right now.
Oh, I got you, okay. Well, we've had we're going to table the amenity schedule until these things have been straightened out. We got a few things to work out, but all those in favor of tabling this for the time being, say aye.
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 Now you need a roll, now do we need a roll call? Okay.
Okay, I have some, couple of comments,
Wait a
a
minute,
couple of things.
I got one more comment.
Okay. Got two. I have two.
We never heard any more about the burglary, and it's been mentioned several times on social media. What happened?
Received anything more from the police. Like I said, the truck was recovered. We have not heard anything from the police or the investigation on it or anything.
Okay.
We have not had any follow-up from the police department at all.
Did we got the pickup back, though?
We got the pickup back. It's back in service.
Everything else was gone out of it?
Yep. We've purchased a few of the smaller tools that we had to have anyway.
Was the pickup damaged?
Just the back bumper was bent up a little bit, but nothing that was an unusual, or took it out of service. And then Mike and Brian took and straightened it out. I mean, the truck would have been covered under municipal league, but, with our,
$25,000 deductible?
well, not the municipal league isn't, but our regular insurance for the tools would have been a $25,000 deductible. So they've just been purchasing the tools back as they find them.
Very well. Other commission?
I've not heard any single police report on this thing at all.
Well, there's been numerous comments made because it's been quiet, that's all. And it's very speculative for people to say things, but other commissioner comments?
Yes, I have a couple of them. And the first one is about this contract for the apartment rental down there. At at the board meeting, last board meeting, we told Mr. Figgins and I was talking about writing a different contract, and it was decided we didn't need to. And Mr. Figgins, you went and wrote a contract to somebody that we have as long as the guy works here, I mean, you had no authority to write that contract, zero. And you wrote that contract, and it is nil and void because you don't have the right to do it because the board did not instruct you to do that, and you were specifically told.
I have the right to write.
You have-
I
now
have the
listen.
right to accept any contract under $30,000.
We
I'm also
specifically
over all
told you
employees.
not to.
And I sent the email out as soon as I did it, and I got no responses back from anybody.
I called you.
Besides Sherilyn and Nicole responded back to my email.
I talked
the
to.
next day.
I'm not, you didn't, we did not okay that for you to write that contract, and especially to write a contract for some guy that works for us, as long as he worked for us, $375. That is ridiculous to do that. You don't know what's gonna happen in 5 years. In 2031, there's gonna be no HISAs. And so why would you write a contract
We're
like
not
that?
gonna have HISA.
This contract is nil and void because we decided at that meeting we were not going to write a contract, and we said that we were going to, basically, you were going to evict the guy and give him 30 days notice.
Never said Evict the guy or gave him
We
30
told you
days.
to.
Yeah, you tell me, I am in charge of the employees and contracts under $30,000. I did what was right to keep it a very good employee. I sent the contract out for for people's input. I got a phone call from you 2 weeks later.
It doesn't make any difference. We never gave you authority to do that. And you wrote a contract that is fraudulent. And this is not the contract. We told you, you specifically said yourself, there's no reason to write a new contract. It's a temporary thing. Now we're not talking temporary. We are talking a permanent thing down there. So now we have 2 other apartments. Let's rent them out. Because you're
Give me
talking-
2 employees that need them, and we will.
Well, it doesn't say employees only, because you've taken away the temporary thing out of the contract and wrote some felonious contract that we never agreed to. And I don't care where you think we still are your boss, buddy. And then now we have to decide what we're gonna do about you. Well, should we fire you? Yeah.
Okay,
I'm thinking that you voided your contract when you broke it, when we left that meeting.
Regulations, I have not voided a single part of my
Well, we
contract.
told you not to do that. And you specifically told, so we either got to reprimand you for something, and it's got to be about 3 things. Either you get fired, or we void the contract, or simply we do something with your salary.
okay. So the contract that we talked about is still in place for the other 2 apartments.
No, it isn't.
This contract.
It's for all 3.
I'm speaking. This contract is specific to this employee. Now, I will say that I was not a fan of kicking him out. And unfortunately, that had to do with this, to me, this was righting a wrong from when it was, what was it, Youngblood who originally had it? Youngblood had agreed to this. Youngblood had made this part of his contract that he was able to live, what? Lawrence Blood, sorry. That he was able to live down there for a certain amount because we could not pay him the salary that he would make elsewhere. So this contract is a separate contract from the other 2.
And we did not agree to it.
Okay, but per Rich's contract.
Rich did agree
Per
to it, we
Rich's
did not.
contract.
He specifically said at that meeting, and we specifically told him, not that we were not gonna rewrite the contract, he said, we don't need to.
That contract was not rewritten. This is a new contract.
Yeah, and we didn't give him permission to do that. That concludes the rules.
But that
down
is
there.
it within his
It's
rights.
not his authority.
Yes, it is. It is within his
Well,
rights.
then let's just
Wait a
change
minute,
that
wait a minute.
authority.
It's within his authority to generate new contracts?
Under a certain threshold,
Under 30,000.
Well, we'll get an attorney and find that out.
Well, the other question one question I have is, we have an attorney, Mr. Bishop, on retainer, and we're paying him monthly whether we use the hours or not. And here we are, he didn't write this. Why would we not have our attorney write lease agreements? They're legal binding documents, and we're already got an attorney on the payroll, and every month he gets a surplus of money because we didn't use the hours.
He's getting the hour's worth for his fees right now.
I think we should void that contract. I don't think we ought to give anybody a contract for as long as he works here. And you said review it every year.
Yeah, I've never seen a contract
I've
written
never
like
seen a
this.
contract this felonious. This is fraudulent. This is dang sure not according to any regulation. You work for us, Rich, and when we told you at that meeting, you specifically said, we do not need a new contract for this. I will give the guy his notice. We told you to give him 30 days, and you said you were going to. Then all of a sudden you rewrite the contract, which you got no authority.
And also, other commissioners reached out to me and made sure that I made it right. I was working under the,
Was this after David had
You
his
use the-
conversation with
use
David
the
Treat
phone,
when he
don't
played
be
golf with
texting
him?
people.
it was before.
David, I have a problem with this.
That was, okay, let's bring it up.
You had a conversation with David Treat, an intimate conversation while playing golf, discussing this whole matter, which I
so-
find very, very unusual.
So here,
You didn't even know who he was.
there you go. I didn't know who he was.
Exactly, you should have asked him before you ran off your mouth to him.
First off, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. We were playing golf.
I can ask the third party
I
that
was
was
told
with
that.
you.
Please do, because what I told him when I found out who it was, I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. There's a recording out there that talked about our open source meeting today," and I said, "You need to talk to Rich." That's what I said. I did not say,
Why would you tell him that?
because it's, anybody can come up to him and say, "Oh, what's going on? How come you're staying there?" Because I didn't know who it was.
But as a commissioner, you shouldn't say things like that.
Absolutely, that's his supervisor right there. Well, his boss, not us. We're the Board of Commissioners. He runs personnel and staff.
He works for us.
He runs personnel and staff under his contract.
And we tell him what to do. He doesn't.
You can
that's-
disagree with it. You can disagree with it however you want to do it, and I agree with you. Had I known who he was, I wouldn't have said a word. But when I said, it came up that he lived there in his, because I said, "Oh, where do you live?" That's how it started. I'm in a golf cart with a gentleman. We were paired together for the tournament, and I'm getting to know this guy who's the same age as my son, by the way. And I said, "Oh, where do you live?" And he said, "Oh, I live in Heisted." I said, "Oh." And he said, "What?" And I said, "Well, there's something that came up," and I only knew one person was living in Heisted. So I said, "This is the issue. There's a recording. I would ask that you go watch the recording to hear the context of what was said, and then talk to Rich." And I had nothing to do with talking to Rich about anything prior to talking to David. Matter of fact, my input on this whole situation, and I didn't bring it up, but I did talk to Rich, and I said, I disagreed with the stance that we did. Because I thought we're in the same thing, that we had decided that this was a temporary status.
It is.
Exactly.
And that's what, I'm on, Rich, did I not say, I've been on disagreeing with Rich the entire time. I said, I disagree with this is not what I thought we did. I thought we voted to say, please go and give them 30 to 60, I thought I said 120 days is where I came at, just because it was so last minute that he needed to find a place.
Well, the
So by all
prior
means,
contract,
talk to this gentleman that I talked to. You can bring him in and you can tell him whatever you want. He'll set the record straight.
But
But don't impeach my credit because of a BOC member. I didn't know who this gentleman was. I didn't seek him out. I just put foot in mouth because I asked him where he lived. And oh, by the way, I live in Heisted. And my expression was pretty self-explanatory.
Nobody should be living down there. It's a temporary thing, and that's what the contract read for all three of those rooms. Not one, and not two, but three. And you wrote the contract, and I think we ought to nil and void that contract. And that brings up my second point, my second thing is that we need to talk specifically about the time off that our employees get. And at 280 hours plus holiday pay, there's no way any company in the United States provides that kind of stuff. And I was told, I think I read it somewhere, 5 weeks after 1 year of paid leave. Is that correct? Which is totally out of line with anything. Nobody does that except giveaway places. The government doesn't even do that. So we need to change those regulations and cut those hours. At least take the holidays and put them into that 280. Put them into that 280.
any other commissioner comments? My only comment in closing is we will revisit this lease again. And I will check to see what was legal and what was not. we can move on to agenda scheduling, which right now is pretty loose because of the court date on the 30th. We don't know what will come out of that, which may affect how we do the agenda in the future.
Well, I'll just let everybody know, I won't be at the work session because I had a year scheduled vacation for a golf trip, so I'm going to be out of town from the 15th through the 19th. So I won't be here at our next work session.
That's fine. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye.